The sun hung low over the rolling hills of the English countryside, casting a warm golden hue over the fields of barley and wheat. Elmswood village, with its thatched cottages and winding cobblestone lanes, nestled comfortably amidst a grove of ancient elm trees that had stood guard for centuries. It was the summer of 1922, and life in Elmswood was as predictable as the passing seasons, a tapestry of simple joys, tight-knit friendships, and age-old traditions. Thomas Grayson, a seasoned travelling merchant, whistled a cheerful tune as his horse-drawn cart clattered along the dusty road toward Elmswood. The cart was laden with colourful fabrics, gleaming trinkets, and exotic spices, treasures from distant towns that never failed to delight the villagers. Thomas looked forward to his visits. Elmswood was like a second home, its residents greeting him with warm smiles and eager conversation. As he crested the final hill, the familiar silhouette of the village came into view. But something was amiss. Instead of the usual plume of smoke from chimneys and the distant echoes of bustling life, an unsettling stillness enveloped the landscape. The air was thick, heavy, with an inexplicable tension that made the hairs on the back of Thomas's neck stand on end. He urged his horse forward, the cart jolting as it picked up speed. The cobblestones of Elmswood's main street echoed hollowly under the wheels. Thomas pulled the reins and brought the cart to a halt in front of the village square. The sight that greeted him sent a chill through his veins. Doors hung open on their hinges, swaying gently in the breeze. Tables were set for meals that had long gone cold, plates piled with untouched food, now attracting swarms of flies. A child's doll lay abandoned in the dirt, one glass eye staring blankly at the sky. Livestock wandered freely, bleating and mooing in confused disarray, untended and unfed. "Hello?" Thomas called out, his voice sounding small and uncertain in the oppressive silence. "Is anyone here?" No answer came, only the rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of crows perched atop the church steeple. Thomas's footsteps echoed as he ventured further into the village. He peered into houses and shops, each scene more haunting than the last. It was as if everyone had simply stood up and left in the middle of their daily routines, vanishing without a trace. Heart pounding, Thomas hurried back to his cart. He had to get help. The neighbouring town of Maplehurst was only a few miles away. As he drove away from the deserted village, he couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching him from the shadows of the elm trees. Maplehurst bustled with its usual activity, the marketplace alive with merchants and customers haggling over prices. Thomas burst into the town square, breathless and wide-eyed. "Please, I need the authorities!" he shouted, drawing curious and concerned looks from the townsfolk. "Something terrible has happened in Elmswood." Constable Richard Bennett, a stout man with a bushy moustache and a no-nonsense demeanour, stepped forward. "Calm down, sir. Tell me what's happened." As Thomas recounted the eerie emptiness of Elmswood, a hush fell over the crowd. Whispers spread like wildfire. "An entire village vanished," someone murmured. Could it be an outbreak? A plague? Another speculated. Constable Bennett assembled a small team of officers and volunteers. Armed with a mixture of apprehension and morbid curiosity, they set out for Elmswood, with Thomas leading the way. The group arrived at dusk. The setting sun cast long shadows across the village, deepening the sense of foreboding. As they spread out to investigate, the eerie scenes Thomas described were confirmed. A bakery's oven still radiated faint warmth, loaves of bread inside burnt to a crisp. The blacksmith's forge glowed dimly, the embers slowly dying. "There's no sign of struggle," Constable Bennett noted, his voice barely above a whisper. "No overturned furniture, no blood, nothing to suggest foul play." One of the volunteers, a young man named Peter, called out from the village green, "Sir, over here!" The group converged around the ancient elm tree that stood at the heart of Elmswood. Carved into its gnarled bark was a strange symbol, a circle enclosing an eye, surrounded by radiating lines that could have been rays or tears. "What do you make of this?" Peter asked, tracing the carving with his finger. Constable Bennett frowned. "I've never seen anything like it." The group exchanged uneasy glances. Superstitions ran deep in these parts, and the symbols stirred whispers of old legends and forgotten lore. "Perhaps we should wait until morning," Thomas suggested. "It's getting dark, and we won't find much more tonight." Reluctantly, the team agreed. They set up a temporary camp on the outskirts of the village, though few found any rest that night. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness, a distant humming, the rustle of leaves, though there was no wind, and once the faint strains of a melancholic melody that seemed to emanate from the very earth. Word of the mysterious disappearance spread quickly. By morning, officials from the county and even investigators from Scotland Yard had arrived. The press was not far behind, eager to spin tales of the vanishing village. Detective Inspector Eleanor Ward took charge of the investigation. A sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for solving the unsolvable, she approached the case with methodical precision. "First, we need to establish a timeline," she stated, gathering the initial witnesses. "When was the last confirmed sighting of the villagers?" Thomas recalled his previous visit a fortnight ago. Everything was normal then. They were preparing for the Midsummer Festival. Peter added, "I passed by 2 nights ago. I saw lights in the windows and heard laughter from the tavern." "Did anyone notice anything unusual in the days leading up to the disappearance?" Inspector Ward pressed. An elderly farmer stepped forward. "Now that you mention it, my wife and I saw strange lights in the sky above Elmswood 3 nights ago. Thought it was a thunderstorm brewing, but there was no sound." Others chimed in with their own accounts, a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground, animals behaving erratically, and an unseasonal mist that lingered despite the summer heat. Inspector Ward ordered a thorough search of the village and surrounding areas. Teams scoured the fields, woodlands, and nearby riverbanks. Divers plunged into the depths of Lake Mere, and experts were called in to examine the mines abandoned decades earlier after a collapse. Despite their exhaustive efforts, they found nothing, no bodies, no signs of mass migration, no evidence to suggest where the villagers had gone. As days turned into weeks, theories began to take shape. Some scientists proposed a natural disaster, perhaps a sudden sinkhole, had swallowed the villagers, though no geological disturbances were detected. Others suggested a mass outbreak of a contagious disease, but there were no symptoms or remains to support this. Among the villagers of Maplehurst and other nearby towns, whispers of the supernatural grew louder. Legends of the whispering trees resurfaced, tales of spirits that dwelled within the ancient elms, guarding the land and exacting vengeance on those who disturbed them. Old Mrs. Abernathy, a woman known for her storytelling, gathered children around her hearth. "They say the trees remember," she intoned, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "Long ago, before our time, a great wrong was committed here. The spirits have waited, and now they've taken what was owed." Parents dismissed her tales as fanciful, but in the quiet moments of the night, they couldn't shake the unease that settled over their hearts. Months passed, with no breakthroughs. Inspector Ward reluctantly concluded that without new evidence, the case would remain open but unsolved. She returned to London, haunted by the faces of the missing villagers whose photographs lined her case files. Elmswood remained abandoned, a ghost village frozen in time. The government posted warnings discouraging trespassers, but that only fueled the curiosity of adventurers and thrill-seekers. In 1925, a group of university students studying folklore decided to spend a night in Elmswood, hoping to uncover clues or at least experience the thrill of the unknown. Armed with notebooks, cameras, and youthful bravado, they set up camp in the village square. As darkness fell, they gathered around a fire, sharing stories and laughing to mask their growing apprehension. Around midnight, the air grew still. The usual nocturnal sounds, crickets, owls, the rustling of small creatures, fell silent. "Do you feel that?" one of them whispered. A low hum began, so deep it was felt more than heard. The elm trees swayed gently, though no breeze stirred. The symbol carved into the central elm seemed to glow faintly, the lines pulsing with an otherworldly light. Panic set in. The students scrambled to gather their belongings, tripping over each other in their haste. As they fled the village, one glanced back and swore he saw shadowy figures standing among the trees, watching them with eyes that reflected the moonlight. They never spoke publicly of that night, but among themselves they agreed never to return to Elmswood. Decades rolled by. The world moved on, wars were fought, technologies advanced, and new generations grew up with little knowledge of the vanished village. Yet Elmswood remained untouched and unexplained. In 1972, a television crew attempted to film a documentary about the mystery. They interviewed locals, pored over historical records, and even brought in paranormal experts. Technical difficulties plagued them, equipment malfunctioned, footage was lost, and strange interference distorted their recordings. The project was eventually abandoned. In 1997, an intriguing discovery reignited interest in the case. Professor Jonathan Harper, a historian specializing in rural English communities, uncovered a collection of letters and diaries in the archives of a London museum. Among them was the journal of Margaret Fletcher, a resident of Maplehurst in the early 20th century. Her entries from August 1922 were particularly illuminating. August 12, 1922. Visited Elmswood today. The villagers seem on edge. Old Thomas, the shepherd, spoke of whispers in the wind and shadows that don't belong. I told him it's just the heat playing tricks. August 13, 1922. A peculiar mist settled over the fields tonight. It glowed faintly like phosphorescence. The animals are restless. Even our dog Bessie refuses to go outside. August 14, 1922. Elmswood is silent. News came that the village is empty. How can that be? Just yesterday. All was well, I'm afraid. There's something in the air, something I can't explain. Professor Harper published his findings, and once again, Elmswood captured the public's imagination. Theories involving extraterrestrial activity gained popularity. Ufologists pointed to the reports of strange lights and the humming noise as evidence of alien intervention. A team of scientists equipped with the latest technology ventured into Elmswood. They conducted electromagnetic scans, tested soil and air samples, and searched for radiation or anomalies. The results were inconclusive. Nothing out of the ordinary was detected. Amidst the speculation, a more human story began to emerge. A previously overlooked document surfaced, a ledger from a local estate sale. It listed the purchase of large quantities of supplies by one William Hargrove, a wealthy industrialist known for his eccentricities. Hargrove had owned land near Elmswood and was rumoured to be involved in secretive projects. Some suggested he had orchestrated the villagers' disappearance for his own purposes, perhaps recruiting them for a utopian society or experiments. However, no concrete evidence linked him to the event, and Hargrove himself had died in 1930, taking any secrets to his grave. In the absence of definitive answers, Elmswood became a canvas for the imagination, a place where the lines between reality and myth blurred. Writers penned novels inspired by the village, filmmakers used it as a backdrop for horror movies, and it featured in countless blogs and forums dedicated to the unexplained. Yet, for all the stories woven around it, Elmswood itself remained unchanged. The elm trees continued to stand tall, their branches whispering in the wind. The cottages, though weathered and overgrown, held on to their silent vigil. One autumn evening in 2022, marking a century since the disappearance, a solitary figure walked along the overgrown path leading to Elmswood. Amelia Collins, a journalist with a passion for unraveling mysteries, had dedicated years to studying the case. She believed that the key to understanding what happened lay not in grand conspiracies or supernatural phenomena, but in the small details others had overlooked. As she explored the village, she felt a profound sense of melancholy. In one of the cottages, she found a photograph, faded and curled at the edges, of a family standing outside their home, smiles bright and eyes full of life. "Who were you?" she whispered, tracing the faces with her fingertips. Amelia decided to spend the night in Elmswood, determined to immerse herself in the environment that had swallowed up so many lives. As darkness enveloped the village, she sat beneath the central elm tree, its branches stretching out like protective arms. The night was clear, stars twinkling in the vast expanse above. Amelia closed her eyes, listening to the sounds of the night. At first, there was nothing unusual. The distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. Then, ever so faintly, she heard it, a soft melody, barely audible, like a lullaby carried on the breeze. It was hauntingly beautiful, filled with a longing that resonated deep within her. She opened her eyes and saw the village bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Figures began to appear, translucent and shimmering. Men, women, and children going about their routines, laughing, talking, living. The spectral villagers moved through the streets unaware of her presence. Amelia watched in awe as the scene unfolded. She realized she was witnessing a memory, an echo of the past imprinted on this place. Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. The ground trembled slightly and the figures paused, looking skyward with expressions of fear and confusion. The strange hum began, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. One by one, the figures faded, drawn toward the central elm tree. The glow intensified around the tree, and then, with a soft pulse of light, everything vanished. Amelia was left alone in the darkness, the village silent once more. The next morning, she left Elmswood with a heavy heart, but also a sense of closure. She penned an article not about solving the mystery, but about honoring the memory of those who had disappeared. Perhaps, she wrote, some questions are not meant to be answered. Maybe the true essence of Elmswood lies in its enduring enigma, a reminder of the mysteries that exist beyond our understanding and the stories that connect us across time. Her article touched many, sparking a renewed appreciation for the human element of the mystery. The villagers of Elmswood were no longer just subjects of speculation, but remembered as people who had lived, loved, and laughed. Today, Elmswood remains uninhabited, a silent testament to the unknown. The elm trees continue to whisper their secrets to those willing to listen. Visitors still come, some seeking answers, others simply to experience the profound stillness of a place where time stands still. The story of Elmswood is not just about a village that vanished. It's a reflection on the fragile threads that weave our lives together, the mysteries that defy explanation, and the enduring power of stories to keep memories alive. In the end, perhaps Elmswood's true legacy is not the unanswered question of what happened, but the timeless reminder of the beauty and complexity of life's uncertainties. And so, the tale of Elmswood lives on, a story passed down through generations, a mystery that continues to captivate and inspire. It's a story that invites us to ponder the unknown, to embrace the wonders that lie beyond the realm of the seen, and to find meaning in the spaces between fact and fiction.